Hi, my name is Larry. This is the Literary Gladiators channel. Thank you for clicking on this video. Happy Easter, everybody. I'm going to be talking to you this week about a story by Flannery O'Connor called A Circle in the Fire. This is a story that is part of her collection, A Good Man is Hard to Find. And I'm going to start by reading to you from the Gospel according to Luke. This is from chapter 12. He said to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life and what you will eat, or about your body and what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Notice the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn. Yet God feeds them. How much more important are you than birds? Can any of you, by worrying, add a moment to your life span? If even the smallest things are beyond your control, why are you anxious about the rest? Notice how the flowers grow. They do not toil or spin, but I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of them. God so clothes the grass in the field that grows today and is thrown into the oven tomorrow. Will he not much more provide for you? O you of little faith! As for you, do not seek what you are to eat and what you are to drink, and do not worry any more. All the nations of the world seek for these things, and your Father knows that you need them. Instead, seek his kingdom, and these other things will be given to you besides." This is a story of Mrs. Cope, who is a farm owner in the South. She has a couple of black people that work on the farm and a white family, the Pritchards. And Mrs. Pritchard is one who seems to be always focused on these calamitous news stories that are happening. And Mrs. Cope is not a big fan of hearing about these stories. And any time that Mrs. Pritchard starts to talk about one of them, she automatically goes into a kind of a sermon on how grateful everybody should be for everything in their lives. But in actuality, she's not really all that grateful. What happens is she notices that one of her farmhands is driving a tractor, and instead of going through the gate, he's going to go around the long way. And she says, it's because he's too lazy to get off of the tractor and open the gate. So she yells at him. He says, well, the blade on the bottom of the tractor would have to be raised up. And she said, well, go ahead and do that then too, So, and then she goes into a speech about how, her farm is the best farm in the whole area, and the reason is because she works so hard. And really, though she talks about being thankful to God, it's kind of a fake humility that she's giving, in which she's actually lording everything that she has over everybody else and saying, "Oh, I'm so grateful for everything I have. Aren't you grateful for what you have?" And at one point, Mrs. Pritchard says, "The only thing I have are 3 abscesses in my mouth. I have three rotten teeth." And she said, well, you should be thankful you don't have 4. That's Mrs. Cope's answer. The other thing that we need to know about Mrs. Cope is that she's terrified that she's going to lose everything one way or another. The 2 ways that the story talks about it, she's afraid that the woods adjacent to her farm are going to catch on fire and burn everything down. And then she's also afraid that somebody is going to get hurt on her property and sue her for everything she has. So these are her 2 big fears. So she has this sense that everything that she has is really the result of her own will, right? And because of the fact that she's willing to work so hard, she has all this great stuff in her life. Not realizing that the truth is that everything that she has is a gift from God, including her own ability to work so hard and her own desire to do so, her own existence. Could be like that, blinked out of existence by God, if He so chose to have it so. So she does not have the proper perspective on that. Again, she talks about gratitude, but really what she is a very kind of a greedy and selfish person. So she and Mrs. Pritchard are talking about, the nature of calamity, and Mrs. Pritchard says that calamity can happen all at once, and when it does, all you can do is throw up in your arms, and that's all you can do. Mrs. Cope says, no, these things do not happen all at once, and I am guarded to make sure that nothing bad will ever happen to me. With that, these three boys get off a pickup truck in front of the place and start walking up. Now, these three boys are meant, I believe, to call to mind a story from the book of Genesis in which Abraham is visited by three men. And they come upon him all at once, and they approach his camp. Now, Abraham runs out. This is the proper way that you're supposed to deal with visitors. Abraham runs out, bows down to the ground, and says, if it pleases you, sir, I'd like to give you something to eat on your way to where you're going. So they agree. He goes back to the tent. He tells his wife, get 3 measures of grain ready and knead it and make bread. Then he goes out and he slaughters one of the best calves that he has. Right? It says it's a tender choice calf. He slaughters it for them. Then he goes and he gets curds and he brings all this food out to them. And that's the biblical way in which you were supposed to receive the stranger. Now, of course, what happens in the next part is that these men tell Abraham that they're going to Sodom and Gomorrah next. They go there, they are received very poorly in Sodom and Gomorrah. And as a result of that, among other sins, God brings down destruction to those cities. And this boy, when these 3 teenage boys get off of this pickup truck, the one who brought them there, has a picture of a destroyer. It says on his shirt. So this is I believe meant to call to mind this story from the Bible. So she, Mrs. Cope, asks the boy his name. It's Powell Boyd, and he is the former worker on the farm, his son, and he and the 2 other boys hitchhike their way there, although they don't say that outright. It's kind of left up to you to figure out that they are either runaways or they have really nowhere to go. They're hungry. She realizes this, and her instinct, of course, is to feed these hungry boys, but what she gives them, she's not slaughtering the best calf, that's for sure. She gives them some crackers and a soda. Okay, and this is how she's going to care for these hungry boys that show up at her door. So they're talking about how the Boyd child wanted to come to this place again because of how much he loved it. And he loved it because she had horses and they were allowed to ride the horses. And this is when we find out that Mrs. Cope is terrified to have anybody ride the horses. So the boy says, well, I'll tell you what, we'll sleep in your barn tonight and my uncle will pick us up in the morning. And she says, no, I can't have you sleeping in the barn because the oldest kid is smoking a cigarette. She's afraid that he'll start a fire in the barn. So the little kid, the smallest child says, well, then we'll sleep in the woods. She says, no, can't sleep in the woods either because she's afraid that the woods will catch on fire and burn down the place. So she's, very much like in the passage that I read from Luke, instead of seeking after the kingdom of God and trying to be gracious and helping these children, right? She can't wait to get rid of them. In fact, they had barely been there 5 minutes before she said, well, it's nice of you to stop by and see me. She's already trying to get rid of them. before they've even, as soon as they gotten there. And they come from Atlanta. And, which presumably it's a distance for them. So, the middle child says, well, I'm going to show these guys around, and show them the horses and everything. She says, okay, but you're not allowed to ride the horses. So, of course, they go off and being boys, they do what they want. They go and they ride the horses, even though they were told they're not supposed to. And, and then she pretty much spends the rest of the time trying to chase these boys off. But, like that Bible passage said, these small things are not under your control. These things, that you think you have such control over are gifts from God. And He will take them from you if you do not use them properly, and He might take them from you even if you do, because the rain will fall on the just and the unjust. The story ends with these 3 boys setting fire to the place. And the final scene is of the woman looking, and her daughter, who this story is basically told to the perspective of her young daughter, says that, she sees all the faces of the people that her mother is so grateful that she's not like, as she's watching the place, as the fire that she's been so afraid of start to burn the place down. So that is the story that we read today. That is A Circle in the Fire. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please do click the like button if you like this video. And I hope that you found this insightful and helpful in reading Flannery O'Connor. I'm going to not be making a video next week, but from now on I'll be doing only 2 videos a month. It'll be on the first and third Mondays. Of course, there's plenty of other content on this channel, so do subscribe, please, and enjoy all the content. But I'll be doing a Flannery O'Connor story in a couple of weeks. This will be, it's a long one. It's not a long one, but it's one of her most popular stories. And I think it's one of the best ones as well. It's from a different collection. It's from the second collection, Everything That Rises Must Converge. And the story is called The Lame Shall Enter First. So it's going to be another long video. Like last week was a long video. It's a long story, it's a long video. So that's kind of how it's going to have to be, because there's a lot going on in that story as well as in last week's The Displaced Person. I mean, as soon as I had that video finished, I said, oh, you know what, there's more I could have said. And that's what's so great about Flannery O'Connor's work, is that there is always more that can be said. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and happy Easter again, everybody, and I'll see you next time.